my dancers today. Connect groups. Meet Lauren Minnick. She's bringing us in to January 18th, Sunday sermon series on singleness. Go ahead, you guys join in. All right. Lauren, fantastic job. We're going to fade it out. Awesome. That's the Newsboys with their classic remix of Shine. Of course, you're like, who are the Newsboys? We'll leave that for your conversation. Oh, there's my wife coming in. Say hello to her. Hi. Yeah, we've got a birthday here at the house today, so we're getting ready for some cake and all the goodies. Listen, I'll keep it short and sweet. Singleness, great feedback from many people, particularly those who purchased this book and started reading, found some helpful things here. So again, I encourage you to grab a copy of that in our resource center or on Amazon.com, wherever you shop. First thing I'd love for you to talk about is what it feels like to be single. Just share some of your own experiences. Maybe you're single now, but what's for certain is that we've all been single. No one is born married, so we all share something in common no matter what generation you were single in, no matter how long ago. Just take a few minutes and share some of the memories that you have, maybe some of the great memories, maybe some of the bad memories, challenges, but nonetheless, just identify with singleness for a minute in your group. And then from there, I'd love for you to take a look at what we talked about in Genesis chapter 2, some of the qualities of God's depth of character that He brings to us while we're single. So Genesis chapter 2, verse 15 through 17, I mentioned several pieces of God's kind of puzzle that He's putting together in us while we're single, and that it's very likely that until these pieces have come together, He may not bring someone into our life for marriage. Not because He's withholding something from us, but that He's doing a particular work. And we looked at Adam's life, and there were several pieces. They were Lordship, that number one, God ordains a season of life of singleness, and we learn that that's from Him. He's Lord. Secondly, contentment. We learn to be settled or rested in our position and state of life. Number three, fruitfulness. That while we're single, we're called to work. We're called to cultivate things, bring things about. We have time on our hand. We have energy. We have relatively few restraints, as we will when we get married and have children. Number four, stewardship. Adam was called to keep and protect what was entrusted to him. And then the quality, number five, of wholeness or completeness or maturity. That we are going to be tested and tried, and God's testing our obedience. And we know through James chapter 1, verse 4, that the result of that test is our completeness. So those are five characteristics. I'd love for you to talk about any one of those five or all five, or maybe go outside of the Bible for a minute and say, you know what, from my own experience, I could also add to that. Based on being single, I know God was working in me, and you can add to the list of five things that came up through Genesis chapter 2. And then finally, we close the sermon with a reference to 1 Corinthians 7, kind of to the two nuances about singleness. One that would propel us to remain single, and one that would tell us to stop being single and get married. I'll read it out loud, and I'd love for you to reference it and discuss these two in your group, particularly in trying to figure out how do you know whether you're in one of these two categories. So the first is from 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 6. Paul writes, now as a concession, not a command, I say this. I wish that all of you were as myself am, but each has his own gift from God, one of one kind and one of another. To the unmarried and the widows, I say that it is good for them to remain single as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to be aflame with passion. So Paul seems to be referencing his particular gift of singleness, or to remain celibate, and he's calling us forward. If not a command, but a recommendation to say, hey, if you can be like I am, great. But if you can't, that's great. Everyone has their own gift. And for sure, if you're kind of burning with passion, or your passion is a flame, you stop being single, go ahead and get married. So would you discuss a little bit about, how does a person know that they're at that burning with passion limit? What are the boundaries of how much, sexual desire and temptation we can withstand before we have to say, okay, I've got to just meet someone, and that's a good thing because of my lack of self-control in this area. And then secondly, maybe we've known someone who has the gift of singleness, or we ourselves. Certainly we can all weigh in with our opinion. What was that? What does that look like? How do you know you have that gift? How can you be sure? And of course, I'll just end by saying, please be reminded that singleness is from God. If you are single, you're not less than. God is doing a great work in you and through you, and has a purpose. And for all of us, we should be encouraging those who are single, and praying for them, and treating them as brothers and sisters in Christ. And if you are single, enjoy that season of your life. If you are married, of course, we'll be talking about that in a few weeks. Enjoy that season. And God bless you. Next week, dating. Now the real fun begins. Have a great conversation, and pray for me as I try to unpack what in the world the Bible is talking about regards to our dating life. Have a great night. God bless.